All right, so we are going to go ahead and get started with the panel. I'm not sure if I had a chance to tell all of the panelists this. We're going to go with 45 minutes, or we're going to aim to go with 45 minutes. I know every one of you is able to talk for far longer than that. So I'm going to try and cut you all off if I have to. So I have some questions. I asked the panelists actually if there were any questions that they wanted to answer, and I got a few suggestions. I'm going to go with a few of those. And oh, I'm in front of the camera. Sorry. Yeah, that was bad. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to start with that. I'm going to try and find a place that I can, maybe if I stand over here on Jeffrey's other side. What was that? Yeah, that's what I'm going to start with first. Thank you for reminding me, Ike. I'm going to start with giving each of you, you've each spoken already at the conference, but still good for you to start the presentation with a brief introduction to each one of you and the topic. The topic is AI and wikis, in particular, how AI can be used to either contribute content to the wiki or to get content out of the wiki. And so that's sort of the scope of the conversation that we're going to have for the next 45 minutes. And we are limited in the room to a single microphone right now because of battery issues. So I'm just going to pass this microphone along. So briefly, I'll give each of you a minute to give your brief opening statement.
All right, cool. So I'm Jeffrey Wang. I'm the founder and CEO of MyWikis. For the past few years, I've also worked with Microsoft. My experience in the AI field is being in big tech during the AI revolution, and also making sure I can apply it, to MyWikis and our clients.
My name is Ike Hecht. I'm the CEO of WikiTeq, which recently launched an AI tool. It's called Mation, M-A-I-T-I-O-N, and I am a proponent, as I discussed in my presentation, of making AIs work with wikis instead of being the wiki's enemies. And if you'd like to see that presentation, you'll find out how I propose we do that.
I'm Yaron Koren. I'm the CEO of WikiWorks. And all these other people have been on my podcast, so I think that gives me some authority. WikiWorks helps to develop the extension called Wanda, which is a MediaWiki chatbot. I don't know, do you want like a manifesto or something, or introduction? Okay, that's it. All right. If you can turn it over to Alex, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, I'm Alex, based in Uruguay, member of the Open Data Collective, and as I said earlier, I'm doing kind of consultancy on how AI that reads knowledge on the internet related to climate. And I was with the Wikimedia Foundation for nearly 11 years.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to now launch into questions. I'm going to ask a question, and each of the panelists will have 2 or 3 minutes to respond, and we'll go again round robin. After I'm done asking the prepared questions, I'm also going to open up and give an opportunity for anybody who's in the audience to ask their own questions, and we'll also monitor the live stream and see. Unfortunately, all the people who were monitoring the live stream are up here right now, but we'll figure it out. Thank you. Okay, cool. So my first question, now that LLMs can retrieve and present data from free text, is structured data provided by extensions like Semantic MediaWiki obsolete?
Absolutely not. It's always been the case that LLMs have functioned better with structured data. I mean, you can think of LLMs as trying to think the way that humans think, and we can work with unstructured data, right? And we are able to make sense out of unstructured data, but it's so much better when we have structure to it. That structure also influences how that data is presented and how it's fed into the LLM. So you could have a lot of synergies and savings from passing in well-structured, efficient inputs and having LLMs try to make inferences out of that. I don't ever see unstructured data becoming, replacing the relevance of structured data. Maybe it's becoming increasingly not strictly necessary, but to, increase the accuracy of your results and the efficiency, I would still highly recommend using structured data whenever possible. And I think it's a tool to enhance, not something to be replaced.
I think I basically agree with that. Trying to use an LLM with unstructured data is just a recipe for disaster. Lots of hallucination. It won't be able to figure out the data that you would be giving it if it's structured. And it is similar to the way humans work. However, I will say that it's definitely less required than it's been before, because LLMs can make good inferences from unstructured data, and that's a major change in how we do our wikis. You still need the structured data, just not as important. And I will say also that over time, I anticipate that LLMs will be as good as humans, and then eventually possibly better, and we may come to a point that there's no point in having structured data whatsoever. That would be fascinating.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think you just contradicted yourself, Ike. You said LLMs without structured data is a recipe for disaster, but then you said, actually, it's pretty good, but it could be better. I mean, the average. Well, okay. Well, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of disasters in the world, so it's not necessarily contradiction. Yeah, I think that's a really big unexplored frontier is LLMs that combine textual stuff and structured data stuff. There are structured data specific chatbots like Spinach, which I think is a real model for the future. But being able to answer both kinds of questions is fantastic. Alex, go ahead.
Yeah, and add to what everyone has said, I think there's a real role in using LLMs to structure the data in ways that matter. So like my example earlier was about energy and a lot of it being framed solely in this like economic business case perspective. Like you need to know how many documents out there offer other perspectives. Seeing in the big LLMs and and a lot of the steps is they kind of do one of two things. They like absorb the frame of what's viable in the commercially available internet as content or storytelling, or they inherit the frame that the user shares. So like it just assumes the user's perspective is useful. And often there are like other topics, but the model needs a little bit of structured data or a little bit of organized data, so curated data to see that there are other perspectives or other kinds of content. So I think there's still a lot of work involved in like, finding the best citations, making sure neglected bodies of knowledge are visible, ensure that the neglected bodies of knowledge like have tags or user intent stories or sample questions that could be answered by that document, so that it like helps orient the models towards the value of the knowledge we already have.
Awesome. Cool. I'm going to go in the opposite direction now. So we'll start with Alex. Next question is, what are the best ways to respect a wiki owner's wishes by either providing them with tools to create content or by detecting and blocking AI-generated content contributions? What policies should wikis have to allow LLMs without compromising on quality?
I don't see the point of LLM generated content on a wiki, and meeting with someone from Google who basically said they're in arms race right now to detect and remove LLM content from their search indexes or from citations. I think wikis in particular, like you should be augmenting human-generated content with LLMs, right? So adding metadata, adding prompts that this could answer, adding information, but like the core of it, the main thing that you're sharing should be human-generated content or human-sorted. Or that doesn't mean like the human might use the LLM to start generating it, but it really needs to be rewritten by the human for humans in order to be like valuable novels, right? And so that's like where the LLMs are very good right now is like form emails and like, you know, synthesizing questions from knowledge bases, which is not what you need to be producing necessarily.
I take, I guess, a minority view, which is I think LLM-generated text would be great to add into Wikipedia and other wikis. There already is a ton of, not a ton, there already is LLM-generated documentation on MediaWiki.org. Certain extensions, it's just strictly LLM-generated. You can tell, granted, but there's always a lot of incompetently written stuff, often by humans, including by humans, no, I should say, sorry, on Wikipedia or anywhere else. I think the challenge, frustration people have with AI-generated code is it's so easy to generate a ton of it that if there's anything wrong with it, then it becomes a real problem. Hopefully there are ways to deal with that. But I disagree with the the hard line that Wikipedia takes against it.
So I might be making that minority opinion a majority opinion, but I think it really depends on what your use case is. For something like Wikipedia, I do see why they would want to restrict LLM usage, but really, if we reach a point, or you have individuals who reach a point where they can use an LLM where it's undetectable anyway, or just as good a quality as what they would do on their own or better, then I don't see why it shouldn't be allowed. But certainly for wikis that have a policy like that, they don't want LLM-generated content, certainly we can give them automated checks, which will do their best to figure out if it is AI-generated. I don't know how long those tests will be effective, but that would be a nice thing to implement. But there's a lot of different uses for wikis, as we've discussed in the conference. I just today added an AI-generated page to the WikiTeq knowledge base, and I don't have a problem with that at all. I think actually it's a better idea to use an LLM to generate content in that context. What I did was I took a JIRA task with all the comments and the description, fed it into an LLM, and said, what do you think the knowledge base should have? I reviewed it. It was absolutely pristine and perfect in every way, and I sent it to another developer to review it, and he also thought it was pristine in every way, and it went right in. Was it different than if I had done it? Sure. Was it worse? I don't think so. Probably better. So it really depends what you're using the wiki for, and for example, I create fictional companies, MediaWikis, for testing purposes and things like that. So obviously for that reason, AI is perfect. Of course, it's not a standard. But my point is that it really depends on what you're using your wiki for. And to say across the board we shouldn't allow AIs in wikis, it depends on the use case.
Let me be very clear. The minority opinion is actually a supermajority opinion. But I need to add a lot of context to that. So I think this is a question that I proposed. And the reason I ask it is because we have at MyWikis, we have so many different wikis with everyone has different opinions. Some of my clients have said, please do not install WikiChat on our wiki. I don't know why, but that's their right and their prerogative. Others are like, please install it as soon as possible. And yet others, I'm sure, would like to have the ability to have their wiki content being augmented with generation of text from LLMs. And the reason is because it's easier to write, and you're kind of making it, you want to have some content, and you're just getting assistance with writing it. But I think most importantly, these wikis are not typically primary sources. And I know Wikipedia is not supposed to be a primary source, but it de facto is in our world. And so I see wikis like Wikipedia having a very legitimate legitimate reason to be very wary and prohibit the use of LLMs to generate content, right? It's going to create a feedback loop, and that's not really good for truth. Now, on the other hand, there might be like a consuming wiki that is meant to be a corpus of information that's not trained upon, that is simply summarizing that's existing data and then building off on top of that. So what I would really love to see is a way to have a way for each wiki and MediaWiki to identify if it's public, whether it wants its original content, whether it should allow, or whether it should be a primary source of information with no generated content allowed, and it should be in fact consumed by LLMs as a source, or whether it's the opposite, whether it's only used to generate, or as like a platform to host LLM generated information, but it does not want to be trained upon. I wish to conclude by saying that it should never be anyone's position hosting a wiki, being a wiki host, to decide whether someone wants their wiki to be one or another. So I heavily oppose the notion that wikis should not have LLM generated content. It really depends on the context, but other than that, I do support everyone's right to choose.
Awesome. I will say that it is not a surprise that the majority opinion was such based upon the composition of the panel. So I think if we broadened our population, that perhaps we would get a different set of responses. So, but not a huge surprise. Thank you. I think what I'm going to do is see, have people formulated questions? Okay, I'm going to take a question from the audience now.
Hi, so I think the primary uncontroversial use case for AI in wikis is one that I haven't seen done very well yet, which is that special search is kind of bad. And it's been pretty bad for a while with respect to fuzzy search, semantic search, whatever you want. I'm not interested in a chatbot on the wiki. I'm interested in special search, getting people the results that they're actually looking for at a much higher rate than they currently are. And I'm curious all of your perspective on the current state of the art for something that resembles that is not in your face, we are AI-powered wiki now, but actually just letting people find the results that they want a little more quickly. I don't think there's anything in Elasticsearch that does that very well. What is, I guess both, what is the state of the art right now and what work needs to be done to operationalize it on a level that means if I do some terrible misspelling of Barack Obama on Wikipedia, it'll actually find me the right result. I tested this right now, actually. I did like Baruch Obama or something, and it didn't work on Wikipedia, but I typed it into ChatGPT, and it was like, it looks like you're talking about Barack Obama. So where is the gap there? What is the state of the art? How do we get there? Thank you.
And I'm going to go in a slightly different order to give everybody the opportunity to go first. Yes, I'm walking up to you, Ike.
So as I discussed, I'm not sure that people should be browsing the wiki or using special search. If you want an AI answer to your content, you could just ask it, and it will.
He said he doesn't want an AI answer.
I would like it to find
Right.
the right pages.
So I do. Right. Well, it's just a matter of preference. But assuming you do want that, it seems like it would be very difficult to implement as a standalone kind of feature just for MediaWiki. But as you mentioned, Elasticsearch isn't supporting it, but somebody should. There should be an AI-powered search engine, and I'm guessing it's out there. And then once it's out there, you have it index your database and just hook up to that. So I don't think we should build it, but we should probably look for it. And if it doesn't exist, that's a great business idea. Who's looking at you?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, Barack Obama. That's my uncle. He's a good guy, actually. Well, actually, but sorry, I want to hold that thought. Jeffrey, I have to disagree with something you said. Wikipedia is not a primary source, even if it's widely used. That's it. No, it doesn't matter. Yeah, but I'm saying it would only be a primary source if people wrote in it stuff like, I just saw a guy running down the street or something. It's a primary source has a specific meaning unrelated to it, the quantity of its usage. But what were we talking about? Yeah. There are. I mean, there are various issues with the standard search functionality in MediaWiki. You can't. It's hard to search on specific syntax, and some people use special replace text actually for that sort of thing, for finding specific combinations of characters and so forth. Even though obviously that's not the intended use of special replace text. It would be great if you could do more structured stuff, and there's at least one solution, WS Search or something, that does that, and it's great. And Cargo provides a separate functionality that includes both structured and unstructured text, but I guess neither of those is what you're talking about. You're just talking about.
I can't hear. They won't be able to hear me, but I'm looking for things that allow random users who search a bunch of random things on my wikis. Sorry, not my wikis, to actually get to a useful page as a result of whatever unstructured query we make.
Yeah, I mean, he's basically saying, misspellings or just synonyms, that sort of thing.
Search essentially that is good.
I don't think you need an LLM for that. Elasticsearch, hopefully. Well, I know it could be better, and well, they're using an old version of Elasticsearch. I don't know if it's gotten any better as far as semantic, semantic relationships of words and so forth. It seems outside the scope of this panel, but other people might disagree. Alex, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm scoping a repository knowledge management project that's not going to use MediaWiki, and there are some open source and not too expensive like search engines that are based on both older natural language processing techniques for like vectors and stuff that will handle intent, right, and then chunking that you would do for like preparing your models for use in a LLM for reg. And both of those kind of efforts to add vectors and chunk make the search quality better. And so I think like any work you do to make it easier to extract that content from MediaWiki, there are like a few search tools. The question of like prioritizing that is for MediaWiki itself is probably something that like you guys as a stakeholder community need to really articulate well, and maybe even prototype with some of these on the market tools in order to make it persuasive as like something in our distributed MediaWiki.
So I see Jonathan's question as, I don't want a new iPhone camera to be like 1,000 megapixels or 1 gigapixel. I want a really high quality DSLR or mirrorless or whatever the heck it's called, right? So that's pretty cool that it's not a very common position, and by not common I mean I've never heard of it until now. But yeah, well, I have never heard of it before, but I think it is a valid take for people who are kind of tired of the chatbot craze, and they don't want opinionated content, right? So the problem with Cirrus Search is that it's still using Elasticsearch 7, and vector search is not supported until Elasticsearch 8. So actually, if we were to have Cirrus Search be upgraded to support Elasticsearch 8, that might be able to bring a lot of benefits. But that being said, you could also make the argument that maybe we shouldn't be using Cirrus Search anymore. Not that it's bad, it's pretty good, but maybe we need to switch to a different search engine to make use of what Alex just mentioned, the ability to do vector search, the ability to do embeddings, things like that, so that we can actually achieve real semantic search, not just quote unquote better text search. And I think people like chatbots because it's kind of lazy, because you can just plug all this information into a chatbot and it comes out with some text, and it doesn't have to be a hard problem to solve. Whereas the problem that you have is you want a neat solution to it. You want actual. Jonathan says he wants the content to be correct and he wants to find it on the wiki. Yeah, but it's a structured solution, and that's a harder problem to solve. I think that's why people don't like to talk about it, because it's a harder problem to solve, but it's a good problem to solve. So my short answer is we should, in that case, invest more into vector search and things like that. So maybe Elasticsearch 8 might be something to take a look at.
Awesome, thank you. I'll ask one more question from here, and then if you all in the audience or online want to think if there's any other questions you'd like to ask. So the next question I want to ask is something that's been dear to my heart since actually I've been talking about this since the early days of my participation in this conference, which is the blank page problem. You start with an empty wiki. Oh, I love your dog, Alex. He's so cute. Yeah, I think the dog has a comment on this. So the blank page problem, you start a wiki and it's completely empty. How do you get users to contribute? And the question being, new wikis start with a catch-22. Volunteers don't add content until content exists. Can an LLM solve that? And I think if we had Odd here, who talked this morning about Juggle, he would talk about his mechanism for using Juggle and using AI to build out a structure. And that's very similar to what we used to do at MITRE, where we would start with an object-oriented decomposition of the problem. You know, what are your key entities? What are their key attributes and behaviors? And we would come up with a set of forms, a set of relationships, data and elements, and use that to create a structure. Although you didn't have any content, you didn't have any initial values of those pages. So here's an opportunity, perhaps you might maybe need to create structure, but also a way to precede some content. So what are your thoughts about how you might use LLMs to solve the blank page problem and give some initial content within your wiki?
So I think LLMs are, at least in the third-party MediaWiki space and in the enterprise MediaWiki space, LLMs are a great way to overcome the blank page problem. And that's primarily because, one, you already have a lot of primary sources in other parts of the enterprise, i.e. you're not making brand new content, you're actually trying to produce like a knowledge base of content that you're synthesizing from other sources that you already have somewhere. And in those cases, it's wonderful to have something that should just kind of do it for you. The risk that you have is AI slop. Arguably, if someone just created a wiki and then used AI to populate all of its content, it might be kind of a turnoff if it's, you know, really bad content. People might be turned away from editing it, and that would, you know, that would actually make things worse. So certainly we should invest in ensuring that if there is AI content generation, that it generates actually good content. Maybe Ike will have more to say about that with Mation. Not that I would know. I'm not sponsoring or anything, but I have a feeling he has some good insight into that I don't have. So I think we should go about it carefully, but in an enterprise context, yes, for, you know, maybe I can't say primary source, but like an original source, how about that, of data, you'd want to be very careful with using AI to generate.
Thank you for the plug, Jeffrey. Everybody's talking about Mation. I don't even have to talk about it. That's perfect. So AI generates a lot of slop, and I say, embrace the slop. Like I said, I want wikis to work with with AIs instead of being their enemies. And what I mean by that is, look at the relative success of Grokpedia. That was literally its model. It put together a bunch of AI slop, and now everybody goes in and corrects it. And that goes back to the Ward-Cunningham rule. Ward-Cunningham said the best way to get the right answer is post the wrong answer on the internet and wait till you get corrected. The amazing thing is that Ward Cunningham was actually at our conference in Portland, and the beauty of it is he never said that. So it's a wrong quote from Ward Cunningham. What he was basically, the real quote he told us was that if you put stuff in a wiki, it might be right, it might be wrong, but if enough eyeballs see it, somebody's going to correct it. But it's just perfect to leave the Cunningham rule the way it is. So
No, I don't think that's the rule. I thought it was if you don't know something, you put as much as you know into it, and people can improve upon it.
And that was a perfect illustration of the Cunningham rule. I just wanted to say, just to put it into practice, at WikiTeq, I want guys to write documentation. They don't want to. What I do is, I generate a bunch of AI slop, and I put it into a page that gets everybody very angry. I tell everybody, review all these pages, and they correct it, and then we have perfect documentation.
Yeah, I mean, if you're starting a new wiki for an organization or what have you, chances are, unless it's a new organization, that you already have documents, whether it's Word documents, spreadsheets, anything else. So the first step is getting into the wiki, and LLMs are great for that. Well, they're among other things. You know, page forms in general are useful as a way to get around the blank page problem. But yeah, I mean, it's always good to start with importing stuff. The only other thing I'll say is, you know, imagine starting Wikipedia today and waiting, you know, 5 years until it actually becomes usable. Just people plugging away. It just couldn't happen today, I think, without some AI involvement. Yeah, I would. Oh, yeah. People sort of romanticize the early days of Wikipedia, but you can go online and see what Wikipedia actually looked like in 2001, 2002. And it's just, I mean, it's chaos. You know, that's just how it goes in the beginning. Yeah. Alex, go ahead.
Yeah, couple observations on this. We aren't in the same internet that the early days of Wikipedia had, where people are used to contributing to platforms. So like if you want humans to participate on the platform, like you need to think about what actions you want the humans to do. Early in my career, I contributed to MediaWiki, partly inspired by NASA when I was an intern, and you know, we had to build workflows and forms and like spaces and reasons for people to contribute in order to get content from them. And so I think especially for like enterprise or organizational wiki, up a good content structure and like a reason to contribute with AI makes a lot of sense to me. Or like things like bad technical documentation, you know, users want to go in and fix the thing. My comment earlier about like AI generated content is really to the point one of the other panelists was making about like he intended to be a source of knowledge in other contexts. And we really want to be careful about that. There's many examples in the Wikipedia community of someone going in and like batch translating a bunch of content to a local language Wikipedia and then edit because it's just a lot of like translation slop hanging out on the pages, and it's not culturally relevant, and it's not like appropriate for the kind of thing that language community would want to work on. So I think there's a really good case to be made. Really think about like who do you want to, and what's going to open up a door for them to be motivated to try to click the edit button. And if, you know, a little bit of AI form content or AI generated stuff is like the thing that opens the door, maybe that's a good idea. But if it's a kind of community that wants to be doing something else, you need to start somewhere else. Or maybe like if the goal is like AI interface on top of a knowledge base, like maybe you don't need a wiki. Which I really love wikis. I love contributing. Maybe there's another way of storing the data or using the data that's more dynamic, that solves the problem in a different context. Maybe you don't need all that, like the user contribution, kind of like Grokpedia. Maybe you don't need the users to actually contribute, right? Maybe you just need like a pathway for feedback or something. I do have to say the video was a very sloppy experiment, and I think what we're seeing right now is a lot of AI slop oriented experiments with generated content. So it's what is what is actually beneficial to people versus what is expedient for use needs to be like a really core part of what you're solving. Because like sometimes the AI suggested like, here's a framework that like then needs to be edited by a human, and deliberately curated beyond that might be what you actually need. So yeah, just thinking the human motivation part is quite important.
Awesome, thank you. All right, we're almost out of time here, but I think I have room for one more. If somebody has a summative question that they would like to ask to sort of wrap things up. I don't know if there was any questions online or anybody in the room that would like to. I'm going to hand it over to Rich.
Thank you very much. So as I ponder the questions that we all are, what I think about is the framework of identity, authentication, and authorization. And when it comes to the decision about whether or not you allow AI to write or to contribute to the wikis, it seems to me the question isn't should content be contributed that was AI generated. The question would be better framed as should validated users, should human users be allowed to have agents edit on their behalf with their authority. And it seems to me that if you could differentiate between, right now we have, like if you go to if you search something in the wiki, you can refine the search down to, human users or bots. And it seems to me if there was a third option, which was agents, you could quickly differentiate the contributions of all three. And then if you were to implement a rule that says that the bots have to have a sponsor human, and then the contributions by the agents could be traceable back to their human sponsor. That all relies on a type of user identification that goes to the accountability of the person, right? So you have to build trust in the person, and then let them have an agent act on their behalf and keep it all traceable.
Who would like to go first?
I get to go first. All right. I don't think that's necessary. I think it's fine to just count all of those as bots. There already are bots that do relatively complex things, including I think the use of AI to do things like detecting vandalism and so forth, and just automatic reverting. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. But yeah, but it goes to the fact that that AI has been in use on Wikimedia and MediaWiki sites for a long time, and in different ways. So it's not really anything new as far as policy is concerned. It's just more so, I suppose. Okay, yeah, Alex, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, something I'm thinking about a lot in my current practice and advising people and stuff is the era of like chatbots as these kinds of models interact with platforms is and like humans deploying them to write text for them for like publishing is probably an intermediary step in the technology, right? Like it's the thing that like became accessible quick, but like it's probably how we're going to be interacting with things for a while. If you haven't used Cloud Code or Cloud Cowork or one of these other kind of coworker style generative models, or even something like Claw, the agentic or the software that you delegate to go do things is calling from as a consumer of all of these platforms, right? And so what we're planning for is a future where a lot of content is not consumed by humans, it's consumed by agents, and also that agents will be produce on the fly more democratically for people based on their requests and preferences. And so I think we should be thinking not in this like very short term, like I'm going to delegate you to write things, but more in that like medium to long term as we like build features, right? Which is do things for me. Those things are indefinite and complex and call on lots of open source software. What do we do to make the MediaWiki content or the platform like flexible enough that we can think about, you know, just being a content repository? We can think about it as a place where humans go to authorize publications of things from AI. Like it's a lot of different other things like that. And you know, I don't have the answers. I haven't thought about it as much as I would like, but I think we're quickly approaching, if all the tech companies don't.
On the other hand, there is
approaching
go ahead.
moment where that happens.
On the other hand, there is no long-term or medium-term without short-term work. So, you know, MCP could be dead in a few years and whatever, but that doesn't mean that that's going to stop us from doing it. And we've made so much progress from, you know, dead things. Agents have completely replaced the other, like, you know, stuff that was happening in 2023. Cindy, I think Rich should have been the 5th panelist. This is a really good question and really good insight. I think there is a great opportunity to maybe create an extension to facilitate this, to have an agent, you know, user group in a wiki that is able to generate things and have like a special page to triage this generated content and have a verified owner attach their name to it. And then on the wiki, maybe could be a content slot that could, you know, be for specific, you know, AI generated content, and it could be displayed on the page with, you know, a warning or like a specific visual, you know, indicator that this is agent generated. So we should definitely explore this together, Rich. This is an awesome idea.
I think what Rich is saying is a great insight, but I think the future actually is going to be the opposite, where it'll become harder and harder to differentiate between what was done by a human, what was done by a bot, and what was done by an AI. Well, to me, as of now, it seems silly to me for a human to write something without an AI. That's just me. I think at some point it actually will be silly to write things without an AI. So how do you differentiate between the two? The human is giving some of the input, the AI is giving some of the input, and some of those bots that are doing kind of like those automated script type of checks, I mean, the AI can act like that as well. It can be like a coding agent doing that kind of change. So I think instead of going in that direction, the world is probably headed to a direction of like, why even differentiate between any of those three?
Maybe are you saying we need an unaccompanied human user group?
In theory, that would be a way to do things. I just think it's not what we should have.
Thank you. We are over, so I'm going to go ahead and stop. This is a prime conversation for over dinner. I want to thank Alex for joining us remotely. I know that's a challenging way for us to have this panel in a hybrid format, so thank you. We appreciate your contribution as well as the contribution of the other panelists.
Thanks. Bye.